Hey, hi everyone. So today we will try to understand the concept of basic authentication and try to implement this with Python's request module. So we will move to the coding part later on. First, let us try to understand the concept of this basic authentication with the help of this diagram. In this diagram, we have two things. We have a client and we have a server. The client want to get some data from the server. Basically, this is an API server. So what the client will do, the client will first make a request. Now this request will be a GET request and HTTP GET request to the server. So the server has received this request and ideally it will give a response. So in the second step, the server has actually given a response, but this is not what the client was expecting. The client will have to understand this response and then again it can make a request with correct credentials. Now along with this 401 unauthorized response, the server has also responded with a header. This is actually a header. It's a response header. We can say it is a response header. And the key of the header is www-authenticate and the value is basic space realm equal to staging server. Now what does this means for the browser? What the server want to say? See, the browser will understand that okay, if the response is 401 and there is a header called as www-authenticate, it simply means that the server is asking for the credentials. So the client or the browser will make a pop-up that hey, enter your credentials. But there are different kind of credentials which we have seen in our previous videos. What kind of authentication is the server asking for? It is actually asking for the basic authentication. Okay, in basic authentication we give the server username and password, and there is a certain way by which we give it. We will understand it when we will implement the code. For now, it just you just need to understand that we need the username and password. That's what basic authentication means. Now in the third step, the client or the browser will again make a request, and this time along with the HTTP GET request, it will also give the server an authorization header. What does this means? This is a header, request header, and the value is basic space a token. Now this is a token which is created using the username and password. Basically we create it in a particular format which we will see while we implement the code. So once we have the token, we give it to the server. The server again gets the request, and this time it will check for the credentials. If the credentials are correct, then it will just make a respond with 200. Okay, and along with it it will give you the data as well. Okay, so this is a correct request. But if the credentials are not correct, it means even though you have given the credentials and particular token but the token is not correct, then the again server will say with 401 and it will not give you the data. This is an invalid request. Okay, so this is all about basic authentication and its understanding. Now let us try to implement this using code. So we have an API, https:/postman-eco.com/basic auth. It will help us to understand basic authentication. So let us first understand it using browser. Okay, now I am on the browser and I will paste this particular URL. So what this will do is it will make a request to the server. But you see, now the browser is asking for us the username and password. So why this is happening? So right now we are on the second step. We have already got the response from the server, and now how we can understand it? Let's go to inspect, go to network tab, try to refresh it again, and you will see that we are again getting this pop-up, and also we have got this request in the network tab. You will see we are getting 401 unauthorized, and along with this the response header is having www-authenticate key, which just means that the browser understand this, make a pop-up that hey, give me the username and password and I will send this request to the server. This time it can be correct if the username and password is correct. So let us refresh it again. I do have the username and password, so I can say postman and the password is password. Okay, so I can say sign in, and now you see I have got the authenticator equal to true, and this time I have got a response. So you understood how we do it using browser, but now let us try to implement this using code. All right, so we have this URL and we will go step by step. So first let us import requests and make a request. make a get request. So r is equal to request dot get. We will make a get request to our URL, and let if we do not pass any credentials, ideally we will get 401. Okay, so let us print. We have made a request, and let us try to print this. So I'll just run this code, and we have got a response 401. All right. We can even print the header for it. So let's try to print the header. Print r dot headers. This will be response headers, and try to run this again. So you will see we have got a header www authenticate. Okay, now let me show you www authenticate, and the value is basic space realm equal to user. This is what we have got in our browser as well, right? So how we can send our credentials, which I have already written over here, username and password, how we can send it? So to send this, what we can do is we have to pass this in the header, right? The when we passed it using browser, the browser was handling this, but when we will do this using code, we will have to handle this. So what we will do, let's create a headers. So headers equal to, it will be in dictionary format, and the header will be authorization. Okay, and what will be the value, how we will get the value? Now this is the hard part. Okay, we have the username and password, we have to convert it in the token, but luckily the request is having a particular method using which we can convert our username and password to the token which the server want. So I can say from request.auth I can import HTTP basic auth. Okay, this time what I can do is I can create a auth object, and this will be HTTP basic auth, and I can pass the username and password. So what we did is we imported HTTP basic auth from request.auth, and we created an object out of it. We just passed the username and password which we already have written over here, and stored it in auth. We can pass this auth as auth equal to auth. Okay, this is a key which the request module need, and this is the value which we have given it. Now if we will try to print r, you will see that we are getting 200. Okay, see, now we got 200. Okay, this just means that our username and password are correct, and it has already sent this username and password in the correct way. What did the magic for us is this particular auth object. Okay, one thing, do not need to confuse with this auth and auth. I can name it anything, auth object, and I have to pass it as auth object. Okay, auth object. So this is the key which the request need when we are making a get or post request, and this is the value which I am passing. This is an authorization object. Now we are able to get the response again. Okay, I can just run it again, and you will see we are getting response 200. Now what is this particular object doing? What magic it is doing? Before we move to it, I'll just give you a shorthand method of how to use this HTTP basic auth. So we actually do not need to import this, and this is only in case of basic authentication. We do not need this auth object. What we can do is we can directly pass the username and password as a tuple. This is one way to pass our username and password to request, and this will also do our job. We have got 200 response. Okay, all right. So this is, and what if we just change the password, make it wrong, and let us again make a request? You see we are getting 401. Okay, let me clear this, and again make a request. See, we are getting 401. All right, if the password is correct, we will get 200. What magic was happening when we were using this, or what magic is happening behind the scene? What actual value is going through our going to the request? It's not username and password. It's actually a combination of username and password converted into base 64 string. Okay, so the actual value which is going in the to the server is something like this. So it will be our token can be equal to, we will have f string, so that we can use our variable inside the string. So it will be username colon password. Okay, for now let us just comment this, and we will print the token to understand what value of token is actually going to the server. Okay, so if we print it right now, it is actually postman colon password, the combination of this, but this is not what's going in the server. We had to actually first convert this into base 64. So for that we will make use of a base 64 module. So we will say from base 64 import base 64 encode. Okay, we'll make use of this base 64 encode and we'll pass this value inside it. Okay, but this is not actually complete as of now, because right now if we do it we will get an error, because we do not need to pass this as a string, we have to convert this to bytes. Okay, then only this will be converted to base 64 string. So to convert it into bytes, what we can do is we can simply say that take this string and encode this. When we encode this in UTF-8, let me break down in few lines. Right, so when we encode this string into dot UTF-8, now this is a byte. Now if I try to print, if we try to run the code again, you will see we are getting a token. Right, this is a token. Now this token is in bytes. We need this token in string, but let us decode it again. Let us decode this just. Okay, now this is bytes, this is in string, this is just data type thing. Okay, so what we did, we first converted our username and password in this format, username colon password, then we encoded it to bytes. Okay, then we actually encoded this into base 64 and then we converted this into string object, and now we will pass this header in the authorization. So we will say basic space plus token. This is how we pass it, basic space the actual token. Let us take this request again, and this time instead of passing this auth, I can directly pass this as a header. Headers equal to headers, and let us try to print r, and this time you will see we are actually getting the 200 response. Okay, so we are getting 200 response. So we didn't need any of these authentication methods from request module, although we should make use of this, but just for your understanding I told you how, I explained you how we can create this particular token and how we can make a request using this particular token which we have already created. Okay, so this is how the basic authentication thing works. You just need the username and password, convert it into token, or directly make use of HTTP basic auth and convert and have your token created by a request module itself and pass it inside auth, or just pass it inside headers if you already have the token. Okay, so I think this is it for basic authentication, and next time we'll try to understand another authentication method. For now we will see you in the next video.